Hi, it's Dr. Lauren Kosinski. Welcome back. This is day number 20 of my 30, maybe 33-day YouTube video challenge. And today is Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. So we talked in the last video about the mind map that I made that was an effort to put down on paper and to collect a bunch of ideas about what I thought was wrong in hospitals for patients and for providers, and what things I could create that might help to address or relieve those. And a lot of those, there was a lot of crosstalk between those things. And as it got organized, and you could see that a little bit in that picture, it started to assemble itself into nodes. And each one of those nodes started to look like a module or one build out for this suite of software applications. I felt pretty good about this, but I still had questions about how to bring it all to pass and how to get money for it. And so I had some conversation about investors, but some of my issues with investors were the same problems that I had with the healthcare institutions and with insurers, that there was going to be a priority on it that was different from what my priorities were as a doctor. I couldn't necessarily name all of it. I just knew that there were going to be pressures to produce things in certain ways that, this is always difficult, right? Because on one level, that are about money and about optimizing profit. But I started to get acquainted with other models for doing this. So first I thought about this as a nonprofit. And then I understood that there were some ways that I could lose control of that. Although the person who had the strongest opinion about that was a man that I was involved with at the time. And looking back on things, I think he was hopeful of having a piece of that and wasn't much of an idea generator, but was a kind of a guy who could get things done. And so there was a little shift in that attitude later on when he became the chair of the president of a not-for-profit organization and realized why that was important, what it means to the public. But at the time that we started, he was, a business school graduate and a CPA, and he'd been kind of in a private sector way getting federal grants for a health services agency that did psychological services. And so he had a pretty utilitarian administrative attitude. In some ways it was interesting. I ended up in that situation because it brought everything into clearer focus in some ways, although it didn't really resolve and it didn't make for a very good relationship in a lot of ways. So there was some conversation about getting investors, but I really didn't know anything about that. So that was going to take some instruction and talking with people about the pros and cons of doing that. Somebody had talked to me about a seed program through the Small Business Association, kind of in partnership with the NIH, but not just with the NIH, with other of the institutes in the federal government. And so one of these was the SBIR program, which was a small business innovation research granting program that helped to get innovative ideas launched. And the other one was a small business technology transfer program. And that was to partner innovators with academic institutions so that there could be a productive partnership. Well, all of this, of course, led me into some consideration about intellectual property and how that worked in employed positions. I'd always signed off on all of this ownership of anything and all the conflict of interest things. I didn't really have any outside payments when I was in an employed position in academic settings. But now it became like another complicating factor in a way in terms of what job I wanted to take, because I didn't want to lose control of these projects, not just from a financial standpoint, but from a creative standpoint. And deep sigh, because it was really challenging to try to sort out. Well, into this mix reemerged a former patient of mine who is a really great person and very smart and a consultant. He's kind of a strategic planner type person. That's what he's done. Systems work for big organizations and scientific bent. But, we had talked about Canopy and this idea of an umbrella organization and how to pay for this hospital. We went through a few different iterations of things, including doing an offshore hospital, but I didn't really want to leave the US. So we'd had this conversation going on, and then when I left my academic job, I had lost touch with him. Somewhere along the line in that, he read that memoir, When Breath Becomes Air, about the neurosurgery resident who turns up with metastatic lung cancer and is trying to finish this book before he dies. So part of what's amazing about the appeal of that book is that it makes physicians seem more human to the public. And there's the poignancy of being a young person who's worked very hard to get to the pinnacle that he's at and is, almost at the summit, but is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? Does it even make sense anymore? This story is wrapped in that as well. But he turned up to ask how I was. And I wasn't doing very well. There were some difficult things happening personally at home in this relationship, and a lot of stresses about where things were, because now I was in my second year, not willing to go back to working the way that I had been working, and then also having something which was starting to seem like it might be of value that I didn't want to give away to an organization that I went to work for. It was pretty clear by this point that things weren't going to come together in a way that was going to seem feasible to me for this project at this as the vice chair of professionalism in the surgery department. So here I am working on this, and this person dug in with me for a while to kind of show me how to develop this program. So I ended up in the first months of this, maybe in the first 3 to 6 months, there was an annual conference for the SBI RSTTR program, and it was in Seattle that year. I went so that I could see who's here and how does this work. Well, this opened up a whole other realm of lots of introductions to lots of different levels of investors and different kinds of entrepreneurs. And also somewhat hairy business of trying to apply for federal grants. I mean, it's the structure of it is difficult, but I set out to do that and then did in fact work on, through those fall months, work on a proposal for one of the components of this build out that I was working on. So let's see. I guess this stretched really from 2015 to 2016. So that this conversation and really trying to organize things and get a grant in happened through the spring of 2016 and into the summer of 2016 is when I started to meet with this other person. So that was a whole other area of expertise and experience that I didn't know anything about and I'm not necessarily naturally inclined towards. So that's where I'll leave off on this aspect of starting to try to create this suite of software applications that's going to solve all these problems that I have in mind. And I'll see you in the next video, probably today.